The low, steady hum of the airplane filled the cabin like white noise, but to Elena Parker, it sounded like a countdown. Every vibration beneath her feet reminded her that there was no turning back now. The plane had left the ground, and so had the last fragile pieces of her old life. She sat rigidly in seat 18A, by the window, her shoulders hunched as if trying to make herself smaller. Her purse rested open on her lap, its zipper broken long ago. Inside were receipts, a crumpled eviction notice, and a small pile of coins she had already counted 3 times, but her fingers moved again, unable to stop. 1 quarter. Another quarter. A third quarter. 2 dimes. 4 pennies. That was everything. Elena closed her hand slowly, trapping the coins in her palm. They felt heavier than they should have, like they carried the weight of every mistake, every sacrifice, every night she'd gone to bed hungry so her son wouldn't have to. She turned her head toward the window, blinking hard. Far below, the city she was leaving behind looked peaceful, too peaceful for a place that had slowly squeezed the breath out of her. To her right, Noah slept. Her 6-year-old son was curled against her arm, his small body rising and falling in a rhythm that soothed her more than anything else ever could. His hair stuck up in uneven tufts where she had cut it herself with dull scissors. A faint bruise colored his knee from where he'd tripped outside their apartment last week. He hadn't cried. He never did anymore. Noah clutched his backpack like a life raft. It was faded blue, one strap repaired with safety pins. Inside were his crayons, a half-eaten granola bar, and a folded drawing of the 2 of them standing in front of a house with a red door. Someday, he had written. Elena swallowed the lump in her throat. This flight was supposed to be their reset button. A one-way ticket to Denver, bought with money she'd gotten from selling her wedding ring at a pawnshop that smelled like dust and regret. She'd stared at the empty place on her finger afterward, feeling both lighter and unbearably hollow. She hadn't told Noah why they were leaving. She'd just said, "We're going on an adventure." He'd smiled, trusting her the way only children still can. But adventures cost money, and Elena had none left. The seatbelt sign chimed. Somewhere behind her, a man laughed loudly. A woman nearby complained about the temperature. The world continued, oblivious to the quiet crisis unfolding in seat 18A. The intercom crackled. "Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be beginning our beverage and snack service shortly." Elena's stomach tightened instantly. She hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon. Hunger had become familiar, like background noise. But Noah had only had a small sandwich that morning, and she knew how quickly his energy faded when he didn't eat. She prayed he would stay asleep. As if her thoughts had betrayed her, Noah stirred. He shifted against her arm, blinking groggily before lifting his head. "Mom," he murmured, "are we almost there?" "Not yet, sweetheart," she whispered, forcing a smile. "Go back to sleep." He nodded, trying to obey, but then his eyes wandered toward the aisle. The snack cart rattled closer, the smell of packaged cookies drifting through the air. Noah's stomach growled loudly enough that Elena heard it over the engine. "I'm hungry," he said softly, not whining, just stating a fact. Her heart cracked. "I know," she said, brushing her fingers through his hair. "We'll eat soon, okay?" Soon. It was the most dangerous word she knew. The flight attendant stopped beside them, cheerful and efficient. "Hi there. Can I get you anything? Snacks or drinks?" Elena felt heat rush to her face. She could feel the coins pressing into her palm like an accusation. "Just water, please," she said quickly. The attendant nodded and turned to Noah. "And for you, buddy." Noah looked up at his mother first, then back at the snacks displayed on the cart. His eyes landed on the chocolate chip cookies. "Mom," he whispered, hopeful. "Can I have the cookie?" The moment stretched unbearably long. Elena leaned closer to him, her voice barely audible. "Not right now, baby." Noah's smile faded, but he didn't complain. He just nodded and looked down at his backpack, as if that explained everything. The flight attendant's expression softened. She hesitated, then handed over the water and moved on without another word. Elena stared straight ahead, her chest tight. Shame burned hotter than hunger. She hated that Noah was learning this kind of restraint so young, learning to read her face, to understand what not right now really meant. She opened her purse again, as if hoping the coins might have multiplied. They hadn't. Then a voice came from across the aisle. "Excuse me." Elena looked up, startled. The man seated in 18C met her eyes. He was well-groomed but not flashy, wearing a simple jacket and glasses. There was something calm about him, something steady. A book lay open on his tray table, forgotten. "I don't mean to intrude," he said gently. "But would it be okay if I bought your son a snack?" Alina's first reaction was panic. Her second was pride. Her third, overwhelming exhaustion. "Oh, you really don't have to," she said quickly. "I know," he replied with a small smile. "I'd like to." Before she could stop him, he signaled the flight attendant and ordered cookies and juice. Moments later, Noah held the snack like it was the best gift he'd ever received. "Say thank you," Elena whispered. "Thank you, sir," Noah said brightly. The man smiled. "You're very welcome." Elena felt tears sting her eyes. "I'm Elena," she said quietly. "Daniel," he replied. "Nice to meet you." Noah happily munched on his cookie, crumbs dusting his shirt. Elena tried to focus on her breathing, on the simple kindness that felt almost too big to accept. "Flying to visit family?" Daniel asked. She hesitated. Lying would have been easier. "No," she said. "We're starting over." Daniel nodded slowly, as if that answer made perfect sense. "Well," he said, his voice warm, "sometimes that's where the most important journeys begin." Elena looked at her son, then back at the man who had noticed them when no one else had. She didn't know it yet, but this flight, this moment, would become the dividing line between everything she had been surviving and everything that was about to change. The cabin lights dimmed as the plane leveled out, bathing everything in a soft amber glow. The steady hum of the engines felt calmer now, almost comforting, like a giant heartbeat carrying them forward. Noah had finished his cookie and juice and was asleep again, crumbs still clinging to the corner of his mouth, his head resting against Elena's shoulder. Elena didn't move. She barely breathed. She watched him the way she always did when he slept, counting his breaths, memorizing the way his eyelashes curved against his cheeks, as if afraid that if she looked away for too long, something precious might disappear. Her arm tingled from holding him, but she welcomed the numbness. It reminded her that he was there, that they were still together. Across the aisle, Daniel closed his book, his gaze thoughtful. "He's a good kid," he said quietly. "He has to be," Elena replied before she could stop herself. The words came out sharper than she meant. Then she sighed. "I mean, thank you." "He is." Daniel smiled, not offended. "Kids like him usually grow up fast." Elena looked down at Noah. "Too fast." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The plane glided through the sky, thousands of feet above the lives they'd left behind. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. "You don't have to answer this," he said, "but what made you leave?" Elena hesitated. She'd spent months swallowing her story, packing it down until it felt like a stone in her chest. But something about Daniel's voice, steady, unhurried, made it easier to let the words out. "My husband left when Noah was 2, she said softly. "Just packed his things and disappeared. No calls, no support. I worked 2 jobs for a while. Thought if I tried hard enough, it would all balance out." She gave a quiet, bitter laugh. "It didn't." Daniel listened without interrupting. "The diner cut my hours. Rent went up. Noah got sick, and the medical bills, well, they finished what everything else started." She reached into her purse and pulled out the folded eviction notice, smoothing the creases with her thumb. "Final warning." Daniel glanced at the paper, then back at her. His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes did. "I have a friend in Denver," Elena continued. "She offered me a couch and helped set up an interview. It's not a dream job. But it's work. It's a chance. That's more than most people get," Daniel said. Elena nodded. "I just didn't expect to run out of money before we even landed." Her voice cracked at the end. She turned her face toward the window, embarrassed by the tears she hadn't planned to show. Daniel waited. Then he spoke gently. "You didn't fail," he said. "You adapted." She shook her head. "My son had to ask for a cookie from a stranger. And that stranger was happy to help," he replied. "There's no shame in receiving kindness." Elena wanted to believe that. She wasn't sure she did. The plane began its descent, the captain's voice announcing their arrival in Denver. Passengers stirred, stretching, gathering bags, snapping back into motion. The moment felt fragile, like it might shatter if she held onto it too tightly. Daniel reached into his carry-on bag and pulled out a small, folded card. He held it for a second, as if deciding something, then placed it carefully on Elena's tray table. "I don't want to make you uncomfortable," he said. "So I won't explain this now. You can look at it later. Or not at all." Elena frowned slightly. "What is it?" "An option," Daniel said. "Nothing more." Before she could ask anything else, Noah stirred, rubbing his eyes. "Are we there?" he asked sleepily. "Yes, baby," Elena said, forcing a smile. "We made it." Noah looked around, then up at Daniel. "Bye, Cookie Man," he said seriously. Daniel laughed softly. "Goodbye, buddy. Take care of your mom." As the plane taxied to the gate, the passengers stood, the aisles filling with movement and noise. When it was their turn to step into the jet bridge, Daniel paused. "It was nice meeting you, Elena," he said. "I wish you both the best." "Thank you," she replied. "For everything." He nodded once, and then he was gone, swallowed by the crowd. Elena and Noah found a bench near the window inside the terminal. Outside, planes rolled past like enormous silver birds. Noah swung his legs, humming to himself. "Mom," he asked, "are we rich now?" The question caught her off guard. "Why would you ask that?" "Because that man bought me a cookie," Noah said simply. Elena laughed, a real laugh, surprised by how good it felt. "No, sweetheart. But we're okay." Noah nodded, satisfied with that answer. When he became absorbed in watching the planes, Elena reached for the folded card Daniel had given her. Her fingers trembled slightly as she opened it. Inside was a business card. Daniel Reeves, founder and managing director. Reeves Community Housing Initiative. Her breath hitched. Behind the card was a check. She stared at it, her mind struggling to process the numbers. It wasn't an absurd amount. It wasn't life-altering in the way people imagined miracles. But it was enough to cover a security deposit, enough to buy groceries, enough to let her sleep without panic pressing against her ribs. Her eyes burned as tears welled up again. On the back of the card, written in neat, steady handwriting, were the words. "This isn't a rescue. It's a bridge. You're the one crossing it." Elena pressed the card to her chest, her shoulders shaking as she cried silently. Not from desperation this time, but from relief. From the realization that someone had seen her not as a failure, but as a woman still standing. Noah looked over. "Mom, are you sad?" She wiped her face quickly and smiled. "No, baby. I'm happy." "Why?" "Because," she said, taking his small hand in hers, "sometimes people help you right when you need it most." They stood and walked toward the exit, toward the friend waiting for them, toward uncertainty that now felt less terrifying. Elena didn't know what the future held. She didn't know if the job would work out, or how many nights she would still lie awake worrying. But as she stepped forward, she knew one thing for certain. She was no longer counting coins. She was counting possibilities. And for the first time in a long while, that felt like everything. Sparkles.